why your child means the world to you, why your child was different from so many others. And somebody walks up while you're giving your speech and grabs the mic and says, all kids matter. Let that sink in. How would you feel? That's what we're experiencing. Although it's your child that's dead, it's all kids that matter. So basically, you should be speaking about all kids.
Mm-hmm.
The fact of the matter is, people are saying Black lives matter because our lives are being treated as if they don't. And if you think that will be allowed to continue with no repercussions whatsoever over any period of time, then you have clearly lost your motherfucking mind. And that's to say the very least.
100%. In addition to that, and this is an example I've heard before, and I thought it was really good. Take, your child or your spouse or your significant other or a close loved one. What would they have to do in order for you to be okay with them being killed? And just think about that. Because for most people, it's going to be like nothing. So why is the threshold for Black people as light as it's pretty ridiculous if you think about it in that term. Like we're taught and talked to about how to deal with being pulled over, ways to behave. Why is our training more stringent than the cops?
That's an interesting concept too, because I always say, and granted, don't get me wrong, let me caveat this by saying the U.S. military is nothing more than a larger sampling of the American public. Yes, the military has racists in it, some worse than those outside the military. But here's the thing that's across the board right here, which is somewhat ironic and somewhat sad. If you were to kill an unarmed enemy combatant, you're going to get court-martialed. You likely will go to Leavenworth. If it is the public, that is it for you. Now, this is a enemy combatant that likely hates your guts. Maybe would kill you if they could. And it's doing wartime, not in nice, semi-peaceful U.S. Doing a war. If you kill an unarmed enemy combatant, you are court-martialed. Now, I will caveat that by saying you might actually be able to kill a Black person in the military, and it may or may not be covered up, depending on the circumstances. Now, that shit there is kind of heavy. So you can go and fight for war, even if you believe in war or not. And you may be killed by one of your own. It might be friendly fire. It might be who knows what. Either way, I mean, the obituary is going to say you died fighting the global war against terrorism, probably. But even then, more often than not, if you do something wrong and it's recorded, captured in any kind of way, and people know, and it's probably too difficult for them to cover up, you're getting court-martialed. You're going to Leavenworth. Yeah, somehow cops who are not at war, whose primary job is more or less public safety, their first duty is really as a first responder is health and safety. And they can execute somebody in broad daylight, have it recorded from multiple angles, have it broadcast around the world, shown on an endless amount of media outlets, have the public be entirely outraged, not be able to justify why they did it or how they did it, and they will get paid administrative leave. How is that possible?
And they get rehired later.
Yeah, explain this to me. How is that possible?
I have an answer. Think about it. What is the most popular, or what is the most famous cemetery in the country?
Arlington.
What's the most renowned holiday for the country? Independence Day.
Independence Day. This is true.
What's the most popular song in the country?
National anthem.
All those are byproduct of violence.
Every last one.
The country fetishizes violence. So the country's not opposed to blood. It's not opposed to rioting.
Boston Tea Party was a riot.
Boston Tea Party was a riot. They're only opposed until the mayor being held in their face.
And that's really what it comes down to. And especially with law enforcement. And people can feel like what I'm about to say is probably draconian as fuck. But there's two words that really allow a lot of this when it's specific to law enforcement. And those two words are officer discretion. All right. When something is at the discretion of any individual, that means they have the ability to enforce any bias they have, any prejudice they have, any way they lean toward. They can then use authority to oppress whatever group they dislike. or try to arrest more Asian people. If I have a bias against black people, I'm probably going to pull over and arrest more black people. This is across the board. When something is at your discretion, you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Officer discretion is exactly how they disarm and arrest armed, belligerent white people, but execute unarmed black men. Officer discretion. Now imagine how the world would be if officer discretion was removed, right? You can't fully remove it, but let's just say it was. And let's say you arrest people, and if they're found guilty, period, everybody gets the same sentence. There is no judge sentencing. There is no maybe the jury will give you a softer sentence. None of that. None of that time served. None of that. Bottom line, black, white, purple, yellow, green. You commit a crime, you get the same punishment across the board. Let's say that every time an officer killed an unarmed individual, they were tried and prosecuted automatically the same way a civilian would be. If the person is unarmed, technically you use probably more force than necessary, which means you either committed manslaughter or at the very least third degree murder, if not second. And you knew that when you did that as a cop, that you were going to be tried. You would probably think twice about how you apprehend people and how you treat people. But since things are at officer discretion, and it has a culture of cops either being bad or neutral, because don't get it wrong, if you're in a department and you know of bad cops, even if you're not a bad cop, you're still a bad cop. You're in a culture that allows it. You're not doing anything about it. When you treat internal affairs like it's an obstacle for you doing your job instead of an apparatus that is supposed to keep you accountable, do understand you're a dirty officer already. You shouldn't have a problem with it. And any cop that would turn around and, let's say, be in this situation that I'm describing and say, you know what, I don't want to be a police officer then. What you're actually saying is, I do not want to give up my ability to execute people if I feel like it and not be prosecuted for it. You're a dirty cop. That's just the bottom line. If you have partners or cop friends or whatever and you allow it, you're a dirty cop.
And let me know how this worked from you when you were, go through basic training or joining a squad. If one person messed up, what happened to the squad?
The whole squad got it. That's all there is to it.
And for those who just played sports, if one player was fucking up during practice, who paid for it? The whole team.
The whole team.
So why is it that we're taught from the earliest age that we're accountable for everyone? We're accountable for the group. Our performance directly affects the people around us. That once you get a gun and badge, it doesn't apply to you. Or that, there's plenty of good cops out there. Like, well, where the fuck are these good cops at? I never see a video of the good cops stopping the nigga from dying.
Nope.
Even if it's even not even a black person, as you saw earlier. We saw before with the older white man who got pushed over by the Buffalo police department, and they just walked by him.
Left him there.
Where's the good cops? Where are the good cops at?
And that was a pack of cops. That was a lot of cops.
It was a ton of cops, and I'm still trying to pin. No one's answered me yet. Where's the good cop at? Fuck that. Why are we supposed to show more integrity where we're not responsible for keeping other people safe? Like, why am I responsible for gang violence, but the cops not responsible for killing niggas?
It blows my mind, man.
The myth of black on black crime is always a tried and true rebuttal, which never holds water.
Now let's step into that for just a second, all right? Because statistics fucking kill me, right? And I've had this situation at work as well. And this is exactly why I want to do this. Motherfuckers always talk about black on black crime. If you look at the ratios in relation to any race in the United States of America, and the funny thing is, all this data is out there on the FBI website. You go to the FBI website and pull up any statistics on violence you want. And ironically, they actually put up the real data. But what you'll find is the ratios are pretty much the same across the board. People commit crime against the people they live closer to. All right?
Yes.
And then somebody once came to me and made the argument, well, cops have killed more unarmed Caucasians than unarmed African Americans. That is true. The last time that statistic was done, though, it was roughly, both was in the 600. It was 600 and some odd Caucasians and a little bit over 600 unarmed African American males. But now let's break this down. If one of those demographics only makes up 14% of the total population, and the other demographic makes up a much, much larger percentage of the population, you would be having to kill African Americans at I'm talking about an astronomical rate for it to be almost even to the rate that you're killing Caucasians, which means you're targeting one of those purposely. Because we're talking about the whole country here. The other one is more so happenstance because there's way more of them than anybody else. And yet statistics are thrown out like it's just valid because it is true. No, put it in context. I like to do this at work because every couple of years they put out what they call the command climate survey. And they always say, we're doing great. The command doesn't have a cultural or racial problem, according to 90% of the workforce. Where I work at, 80 to 90% of the workforce is white.
Mm-hmm.
So if 100% of them feel that it's not a race problem, that could also mean that 100% of your minorities feel that it is a race problem, which means you actually have a terrible race problem. I'm not even saying that's necessarily the exact stats, but they're off enough that that's what it seems like. But this is across the board because there's race issues definitely across the government, but let's not forget the private sector, the military, everywhere. But it kills me when people turn around and try to justify it with a super old, super outdated, and inaccurate statistic that adds like absolutely no merit to what the fuck you're saying. What you're actually saying is, I'm biased. I don't care that you're being killed. And I quite frankly don't want to do anything about it because it doesn't affect me.
Because at this point, we're at the stage where it's just intellectually dishonest. There is no yeah, but there is no devil's advocate. And there are just people who just want to perpetuate their way of life. And I think what we're learning is people are sick of that shit. What kind of brain or person do you have to be to put your knee on someone's neck for damn near almost 10 minutes with your hands in your pocket, with a camera on you, and a smirk on your face, and there's not an ounce of self-consciousness in you? There's not a moment when you're thinking, "Oh shit, people see me." That's hubris. Yes. And that is because there's a culture of people who carry that through, who will make excuses for that person, who will somehow say that the person underneath the knee deserves it without knowing anything.
Yeah, that shit kills me. Without knowing nothing about the person, you just
knowing a fucking thing. And these are people who say that, who claim to have black friends, who claim to be married to a black woman or a black man, who claim to, I'd vote for Obama 3 times, I voted for Obama twice. And all of a sudden that makes them not racist.
Let's just go into something that makes that a little funny to me. I always talk on microaggressions, right? So somebody always, asks the question, what can I do if I'm not, experiencing it, if I'm not of the cultural demographic background, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, man, you're reading my mind.
Right. So
nice segue.
So, yeah. so
I'm waiting to get this off.
Here's my thing, man. I'm trying to contain myself even as I get into this shit. But it's so much little racist shit that people goddamn do that we deal with an endless amount of throughout the day. And people know they do it, or they're at least been conditioned to the point where they feel that it's okay. And what kills me about that too is everybody that's asking, what can I do? First thing I would suggest doing is looking to your left and your right. If you Caucasian, Asian, Hispanic, whatever you are, and you don't feel you have racist tendencies, and for the record, we're just going to assume that you don't. I guarantee you that there's people among your friends that do. I guarantee you it's possibly some people among your family that do. And every time you check them or don't check them, if what you end up doing in the end is placating to whatever their beliefs are so they'll be comfortable and you all can continue being friends, I can't fuck with you because what you're actually telling me is you didn't actually fuck with me in the first place. I'm going to be black to the day I die, which at this rate probably could be sooner rather than later. If you don't check people, let's just say among my own friends, let's just say my friends of any race, had somebody around you talking shit about black people and you let it fly because, well, you're not black. You never fucked with me in the first place. Let's just be clear about that. Because you only give a fuck about me up until the point where you actually got to do something to defend me. That would be the equivalent of somebody coming up and saying something sideways about Rich, my brother, Trey. And me standing by and saying either nothing or agreeing. No, motherfuckers know for a fact they can approach me with that shit. Because if you approach me with some bullshit like that, I'm punching you in your fucking face. And I'm still going to send you to the home. Because that ain't cool. And every time I see it at work, when people talk sideways and nobody checks them, or I hear about somebody coming back to me and saying, well, you know what such and such said about you? I actually don't give a fuck about what they said about me. I give a fuck about the fact that you stood there and let them say it. And then you feel it's okay to come back and say it to me. I don't fuck with you. Understand this?
Right.
If somebody is comfortable enough, feel that they're in a permissive enough environment to talk shit about black people, then they partially feel that they can do it around you and it'd be okay. Fuck you. If you didn't do anything at all.